Hey everyone, welcome back. I know you've been wanting to dig into the Nokia X6,
Oh, yeah.
and you sent over some really cool research on it that
Excellent.
we're gonna kind of go through today.
Okay.
And we've got this great article from rechargemytoepup.com called Nokia X6, a solid mid-range smartphone with impressive features and design. Um, so this phone's a little bit older, right? Came out May 2018.
Yeah.
Um, but is it just another mid-ranger from the past? Or does it have something a little special to offer? Let's find out.
It's interesting that you picked this phone because even though it's 2018, there's still this like little bit of buzz around it. It
Yeah.
kind of shook things up in the mid-range market,
Yeah,
and I'm curious to see how it measures up today.
totally. So the article mentions that it was manufactured by HMD Global,
Mm.
who were licensing the Nokia brand
Right?
at the time, and it seems like they were going for sleek design and features without the crazy price tag.
Yeah. That was definitely their sweet spot. Just trying to hit that balance of style and functionality and make it accessible to a wider audience.
And speaking of style, the article raves about the screen, 5.8 inches full HD resolution. That's 1080 by 2280 pixels if you're counting.
Wow.
And they make a big deal about the 19.9 aspect ratio,
Uh-huh.
which was pretty new at the time, right?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Like, remember when phones used to be all like,
Square.
yeah.
Yeah. Boxy.
This wider aspect ratio was a game changer for watching videos and browsing the web. You just get so much more screen real estate to work with.
Right.
Do you remember when that shift happened?
Oh, yeah.
I mean, did you notice a difference?
It was a huge difference.
Yeah.
It felt so much more like modern and cinematic.
Totally.
And get this, the X6 even had Corning Gorilla Glass 3 to protect that beautiful screen from scratches.
Oh, nice.
I'm all about practicality.
Oh, for sure. Durability is key. But let's look under the hood.
The article mentions a Qualcomm Snapdragon 636 processor
Okay.
and the option of 4 GB or 6 GB of RAM.
Hmm.
What do you think? Was that a powerhouse back in 2018?
It sounds pretty impressive for a mid-range phone from that era.
Yeah.
Um, I'm not a total tech whiz,
Sure.
but I know RAM helps with multitasking, like running multiple apps at the same time.
Uh-huh.
Could it handle that without slowing down?
Yeah, the Snapdragon 636 was no slouch.
Okay.
It was a solid mid-range chip,
Yeah.
more than capable of handling your everyday tasks, and having 4 or 6 GBs of RAM would made a big difference for smooth multitasking.
Right.
So think about what you were doing on your phone back then.
Yeah.
Were you a heavy app user?
I wasn't gaming on my phone that much back then.
Okay.
But I was definitely like social media messaging apps, browsing a lot.
Yeah,
Would that have been a smooth experience on the X6, do you think?
absolutely.
Right.
The combination of that processor and RAM would handle those tasks with ease.
Good.
And don't forget the storage. It came with 64 GB internally, which was pretty generous at the time.
Wow.
Plus, you could expand it up to 400 GB with a micro SD card.
That is a ton of storage. Do you
Yeah.
think people even needed that much space back then?
Probably not, but it's always nice to have the option, right? Especially if you're someone who takes a lot of photos and videos.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, let's talk about the X6's camera setup.
Okay, let's get into it.
Yeah.
The article says it had a dual camera system on the back, 16 megapixels for the main sensor and 5 megapixels for the secondary sensor.
Right.
What was the advantage of having two cameras?
Well, the second camera allowed for things like depth sensing, which was used for features like bokeh mode.
Oh, yeah.
Remember that blurred background effect that became really popular? That was thanks to dual camera systems?
Bokeh mode. It made photos look so much more artsy.
Right.
I remember trying to like recreate that effect manually before
Yeah.
dual cameras were a thing, and it was quite a challenge.
Yeah, it was a lot of work.
Did the X6's camera have any other tricks up its sleeve?
It also had features like HDR and panorama.
Okay.
HDR helps capture more detail in photos with challenging lighting, and panorama is great for those sweeping landscape shots.
And for the selfie lovers out there, it had a 16 megapixel front camera with AI-powered portrait mode.
Exact.
So I guess that's another way to get that bokeh effect, but for selfies.
Exactly. They definitely weren't ignoring the selfie trend. It seems like they wanted to make sure the X6 had all the bases covered for photography enthusiasts.
So it seems like for capturing your everyday moments, the X6 had a pretty decent camera setup, even by today's standards.
I think so, yeah. Of course, camera technology has come a long way since 2018.
Right.
But for a mid-range phone from that era, the X6 was definitely holding its own.
But a phone is more than just a camera, right?
Right.
What about all the ways we connect and stay entertained? Did the X6 deliver on that front?
It had all the usual suspects: Bluetooth 5.0 for connecting your headphones or speakers, Wi-Fi for browsing, and streaming, GPS for navigation. But there's one thing that might surprise you even today.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What is it?
It had a 3.5 millimeter headphone jack.
You mean like a real headphone jack?
The one and only.
Like the kind where you can just plug in your headphones without an adapter?
Exactly.
Yeah.
These days, it's becoming a rarity even in mid-range phones.
That is a throwback.
Yeah.
I guess in 2018, it wasn't as unusual.
No, not so much.
So the X6 was a picture of connectivity,
Uh-huh.
even if it wasn't wireless all the way.
Definitely, they were catering to those who prefer the wired experience, which is something you don't see as much anymore.
And what about the software? The article mentions that it ran on Android 8.1 Oreo
Yeah.
out of the box,
Mhm.
but it was upgradable to Android 10.
Right.
Was that a big deal back then?
It was a decent offering. Android 8.1 was a solid operating system.
Yeah, okay.
And the fact that it was upgradable to Android 10 meant you could enjoy some of the newer features and security updates.
So it wasn't stuck in the past, even if it wasn't running like the very latest software.
Right.
And for power, it had a 3060 mAh battery. How did that stack up in 2018?
That was pretty standard for a mid-range phone at the time.
Yeah.
It probably got you through a day of moderate use, but heavy users might have needed to top up more frequently.
Yeah.
Do you remember how often you used to charge your phone back then?
It feels like a lifetime ago.
Yeah.
I think I was pretty good about charging it every night.
Uh-huh.
But I definitely remember that panic of seeing the low battery warning when I was out and about.
Oh, we've all been there.
Yeah.
But you know, there's more to this phone than just the hardware.
Oh.
It was part of the Android One program.
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember what that was all about?
Vaguely. I know it had something to do with the software, but refresh my memory.
Okay.
What made Android One special?
Well, imagine a phone without all the extra apps that you never use.
Okay.
No bloatware.
Oh.
Just a clean, near-stock Android experience.
Okay.
That was the beauty of Android One.
So a simpler, more streamlined experience.
Exactly.
I bet that appealed to a lot of people who were tired of, like, cluttered phone interfaces.
Yeah, definitely. It also meant smoother performance and faster updates directly from Google.
Ooh.
No waiting for manufacturers to customize and push out updates. That was a big selling point back then.
Sounds like they were kind of ahead of their time with that approach.
Yeah.
A lot of manufacturers have adopted a cleaner software experience since then, haven't they?
They have, which is great for consumers.
Yeah.
It seems like the industry as a whole listened to what people wanted and moved away from overly customized interfaces.
Yeah, it's interesting how the Nokia X6 was kind of a trendsetter in that regard.
It was.
So we've got a clean, up-to-date operating system, decent battery life, and all the essential connectivity features.
Mm-hmm.
But what about security?
Yeah.
Did the X6 keep your data safe?
It did.
Oh,
You had two options for unlocking the phone: face recognition and a fingerprint scanner on the back.
so you could choose the method that worked best for you.
Exactly.
I remember when Face Unlock was like a brand new feature.
Yeah.
It felt so futuristic.
It did have that cool factor.
Yeah.
And the fingerprint scanner was always a reliable backup.
Right. And in terms of looks, what were the design options?
They kept it classic.
Okay.
You could get the X6 in black, blue, or white. It had a durable metal frame and a glass back, giving it a premium feel.
Hmm.
Would any of those colors have tempted you?
I think I would have gone for the blue.
Okay.
It's a nice pop of color, and I've always been a fan of metal and glass designs.
Yeah.
They just feel more sophisticated.
They do, and it sounds like Nokia was aiming for that sophisticated vibe with the X6, but there's a catch, and it might be a deal breaker for some.
Oh, no. What is it? Don't leave me in suspense.
The article mentions that the availability was a bit limited.
Okay.
It launched in China initially, then made its way to India and Europe, but it wasn't widely available in other regions like the US, for example.
That's a bummer. So close yet so far for some potential fans.
Right. It makes you wonder how the X6 might have been received if it had a wider release.
That's a great point. It definitely had a lot going for it. But even if it wasn't like a global phenomenon, it sounds like the X6 made a splash in the markets where it was available.
It did, and I think it's a testament to how Nokia was trying to innovate and push the boundaries of what a mid-range phone could be.
So we've covered a lot of ground here. Sleek design, a capable processor, a versatile camera setup, and that unique Android One experience.
Right.
But how does it all stack up in today's world?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
The tech world moves so fast, what was cutting edge a few years ago can feel almost vintage now.
I know. It's crazy how quickly things change. So let's put on our time-traveling hats and imagine the Nokia X6 landing in the present day.
Okay.
Would it still hold its own?
That's what we'll explore next.
Okay.
We'll take a closer look at the X6's strengths and weaknesses, compare it to some of today's mid-range phones, and see if it can stand the test of time.
I can't wait to see how it fares.
Mm-hmm.
Stay tuned, folks. We'll jump right back into the deep dive after this.
Okay, so we've traveled through time, and the Nokia X6 has landed in the present day.
How would it stack up against today's competition?
It's a tough landscape out there for sure.
Well.
The mid-range phone market has exploded in recent years.
Yeah.
There's so many great options to choose from.
It's overwhelming,
It really is.
trying to keep up.
Uh-huh.
But let's focus on our time traveler here.
Okay.
What are some of the X6's strengths that might still impress in today's world?
Well, that Snapdragon 636 processor,
Yeah.
while not top of the line anymore, is still no slouch.
Okay.
It could handle most everyday tasks without breaking a sweat.
So for things like browsing the web,
Mm-hmm.
checking emails, using social media, it wouldn't feel sluggish.
I wouldn't expect so, no.
Okay.
And 64 GB of storage is still pretty generous for a mid-range phone.
Yeah.
You wouldn't have to worry about running out of space anytime soon.
And if you did need more space, there's always that expandable storage option.
Right. Up to 400 GB with a micro SD card. That's a lot of room for photos, videos, music.
Speaking of photos, do you think the X6's camera could still hold its own in the age of Instagram and TikTok?
It's definitely not going to compete with the latest flagship cameras
Right.
with their multiple lenses and advanced AI capabilities.
So no, mind-blowing night shots or 8K video recording?
Probably not.
Okay.
But for casual everyday photography,
Yeah.
the X6 could still capture some decent shots, especially with features like HDR and bokeh mode.
Oh, yeah, bokeh mode. Remember how cool that was when it first came
Well,
out?
because all the...
That blurry background effect
Yeah,
made photos look so much more professional.
totally. And the X6's 16-megapixel front-facing camera with AI-powered portrait mode would still be great for selfies.
Yeah, I can see it now, vintage selfies with that classic bokeh flare.
Exactly.
And let's not forget that sleek 19.9 aspect ratio that still feels modern, doesn't it?
Absolutely. That wider screen is perfect for consuming media and even multitasking.
Yeah.
And remember, the X6 kept the headphone jack?
The headphone jack. Oh, yeah, I forgot about that.
It's a rarity these days.
I bet there are still a lot of people out there who appreciate that wired connection.
For sure.
So we've got a decent processor, ample storage, a capable camera, a modern aspect ratio, and a headphone jack. That's a pretty good foundation for a mid-range phone, even in today's world.
I think so.
What about the areas where it might not hold up as well?
Well, the biggest concern would probably be the battery life.
Okay.
3060 mAh was decent for 2018,
Yeah.
but by today's standards, it might feel a bit underwhelming.
Especially with our phones doing so much more these days, like streaming videos, playing graphics-intensive games, constantly connected to social media.
Exactly. And 5G connectivity is becoming more prevalent,
Right.
which can also drain the battery faster.
So the X6 might not be the best choice for someone who's constantly on their phone.
Probably not. And another thing to consider is the lack of water resistance.
Oh, that's a big one. These days, it seems like almost every phone has some level of water resistance.
It's become pretty standard even in the mid-range category.
Yeah.
So if you're prone to spills or getting caught in the rain.
The X6 might not be the most practical choice.
And what about the Android One experience?
Yeah,
That was a big selling point back in 2018.
it was.
But is it still as relevant today?
It's interesting, isn't it? Back then,
Yeah.
Android One was like a breath of fresh air.
Right.
But now, a lot of manufacturers have embraced a cleaner software experience.
Uh-huh.
So it's not as much of a differentiator as it used to be.
So it's kind of a victim of its own success.
Right.
It helped pave the way for a better Android experience for everyone, even if it means it's not as unique as it once was.
That's a good way to put it. It raised the bar for the industry.
Yeah.
And let's not forget, the X6's Android version is a few years old at this point.
Right.
Even though it was upgradable to Android 10, there have been several major updates since then.
So it wouldn't have the latest features and security enhancements.
Right. And that's something to keep in mind when comparing it to newer phones.
Okay, so we've got some potential downsides. Battery life, water resistance, and an older Android version.
But overall, what's the verdict? Could the Nokia X6 still cut it in today's world?
I think it depends on your priorities.
Okay.
If you're looking for a phone with the absolute latest technology and features, then the X6 probably isn't the best choice.
But what if you're someone who values simplicity? A clean software experience and a phone that just works.
Then the X6 might still have some appeal.
Okay.
And let's not forget that headphone jack.
Right.
That's a major plus for some people.
Yeah, it's like a blast from the past in a good way. It reminds us that sometimes less is more.
Uh-huh.
And maybe, just maybe, the Nokia X6's simplicity could be its secret weapon in a world of increasingly complex smartphones.
It's a good reminder that technology doesn't always have to be about the newest, shiniest thing.
Right.
Sometimes it's about finding a device that meets your specific needs and preferences.
So we've explored the X6's journey from 2018 to the present day. We've analyzed its strengths, its weaknesses, and how it measures up against the competition.
We have.
But what does it all mean?
Yeah.
What are the key takeaways for our listener?
I think the biggest takeaway is that the tech world moves incredibly fast.
Yeah.
What was considered cutting edge a few years ago can quickly become outdated.
So how do we avoid getting caught up in this endless cycle of upgrades and new releases?
It's about being mindful and intentional with our tech choices.
Okay.
What features are truly important to you? What are your non-negotiables?
And once you know what you're looking for, you can start doing your research and comparing different options.
Right.
There's no need to jump on the latest trend just because it's new.
Exactly. The Nokia X6's story is a good reminder that sometimes the best phone for you might not be the flashiest or the most expensive.
Right.
It's about finding a device that fits your lifestyle and your budget.
That's great advice. It's so easy to get caught up in the hype and feel like you need the latest and greatest.
It really is.
But ultimately, it's about choosing a phone that makes you happy and helps you stay connected.
Couldn't agree more. And who knows, maybe there are some hidden gems from the past, like the Nokia X6, that are still worth considering today.
It's like finding a vintage treasure that still holds its value.
Uh-huh.
So we've delved into the past, analyzed the present, but what about the future? Where do we go from here?
That's a great question, and I think it's the perfect segue into our final thoughts on this deep dive.
Okay.
We'll explore some of the trends that are shaping the future of smartphones
Right.
and how they might impact our choices going forward.
I'm excited to see what the future holds. Stay tuned, folks, as we wrap up our deep dive into the world of the Nokia X6 and beyond. We've spent this deep dive exploring the Nokia X6, a phone that really made its mark back in 2018.
Yeah.
And we've seen how some of its features have stood the test of time, while others might feel a bit dated now.
Right.
But it's got me thinking, what's next? What will we be looking for in a phone 5 years from now?
It's like gazing into a crystal ball, isn't it?
Yeah.
The pace of innovation is relentless. But if we look at current trends,
Yeah.
I think we can make some educated guesses.
Okay, so what's on the horizon? What's got you excited?
Well, one area that's really pushing boundaries is display technology.
Okay.
Foldable screens are becoming more mainstream.
Right.
And who knows, maybe in a few years we'll have phones that unfold into tablet-sized devices.
That would be amazing.
Right.
Imagine watching a movie on a phone that transforms into like a mini cinema.
Yeah.
What else is in store for displays?
We're also seeing advancements in refresh rates.
Okay.
Higher refresh rates means smoother scrolling and animations, which can make a huge difference in the user experience.
So even basic tasks like scrolling through social media would feel more fluid and responsive.
Exactly.
I could definitely see the appeal in that.
Yeah. And then there's AI. Artificial intelligence is already playing a big role in our smartphones, from voice assistants to camera features. But in the future, AI could become even more integrated into our devices, anticipating our needs and making our lives easier.
Like a personal assistant that lives in your phone
Yeah.
and knows you better than you know yourself.
Exactly.
That sounds both amazing and a little bit creepy.
It is a delicate balance.
Yeah.
But imagine a phone that learns your daily routine,
Okay.
optimizes your battery usage, and even suggests apps or content based on your preferences.
It would be like having a digital sidekick always there to lend a helping hand.
Exactly.
And with all this advanced technology, will it only be available in like top-tier expensive phones, or will mid-range devices benefit too?
That's a good question. Historically, cutting-edge features have debuted in flagship phones before trickling down to more affordable models.
Yeah.
But I think that gap is narrowing.
So we might see things like foldable screens and high refresh rates becoming more accessible in the future.
I think it's definitely a possibility as technology matures and production costs decrease. Those premium features could become standard in mid-range devices.
That would be a game changer.
Right.
It would mean that everyone, regardless of budget, could experience the latest and greatest tech.
Exactly. And it would also raise the bar for all phones, pushing manufacturers to constantly innovate and offer better value for money.
Yeah, it's exciting to think about how these advancements will shape the future of smartphones, but it also makes you wonder about the environmental impact.
That's a crucial point.
Yeah.
As we embrace newer technologies, we need to be mindful of their sustainability.
Uh-huh.
The constant cycle of upgrades can contribute to e-waste and resource depletion.
So what can we do to be more responsible consumers?
Well, one solution could be focusing on phone durability and longevity.
Okay.
Imagine phones that are built to last for 5 years or even longer.
That would be a huge shift from the current upgrade cycle.
It
It
would.
would require a change in mindset, both from consumers and manufacturers.
It would.
But imagine the positive impact it could have on the environment if we held on to our phones for longer periods.
Absolutely.
And maybe software updates could play a bigger role too.
Yeah.
If phones received updates for longer periods, they wouldn't feel outdated as quickly.
Exactly. It would extend their lifespan and reduce the pressure to upgrade just to stay current.
It seems like the future of smartphones isn't just about cramming in more features,
Uh-huh.
but also about creating devices that are more sustainable and ethical.
Absolutely. It's about finding a balance between innovation and responsibility.
So for our listener who's been on this deep dive with us, exploring the Nokia X6 and pondering the future of smartphones, what's the ultimate takeaway?
I think it's about being an informed and conscious consumer.
Okay.
As we've seen, the tech world moves fast, but that doesn't mean we have to get swept up in the frenzy.
We can take our time, consider our needs, and make choices that align with our values.
Exactly.
And who knows, maybe we'll even find ourselves rediscovering the beauty of simplicity in a world that's increasingly complex.
Well said. And that wraps up our deep dive into the world of the Nokia X6 and the exciting possibilities that lie ahead for smartphones.
We hope you've enjoyed this journey with us. Until next time, keep exploring, keep learning, and remember, the future of tech is in our hands.